Hello, and welcome back to Teacher Tips by Alessia's Academy. In today's teacher tip video, we'll be going through how to format a bibliography or works cited page in MLA, APA, and Chicago style formatting. We will first be going through a couple of general rules of thumb for all of these formats, and then you can also use the timestamps in the description below to skip ahead to whichever format you need for your particular assignment. So first things first, I just want to explain what the difference is between a bibliography and a works cited page. A bibliography is something that lists all of the sources that you've used for research, regardless of whether or not you cited them in your essay. So anything that you have looked at to help you get the information that you needed to write it, all of this goes together on that references page at the very end, and that's what we call a bibliography. However, if you are doing a works cited page, what that means is that you are only using the resources that you actually used as evidence in your essay. So you could have you most likely did a lot of extra research, but weren't able to use all of those sources necessarily as evidence throughout your essay. So whatever source that you didn't cite, you don't include. So that's the difference between a bibliography and a works cited page. So just make sure that you're putting the correct one at the top of your page for your assignment. So every bibliography or works cited page has to include, first of all, you have to state whether it's a works cited or bibliography at the top of the page. You also need to put all of your sources in alphabetical order by author's last name. And then any sources that don't have an author, you have to put in alphabetical order by the title of the source, but after all of your sources with authors have been listed. So use the sources with authors first, and then you do another set of alphabetical references at the end, okay? And the other thing you need to do is make sure that you have a left hanging indent for each of your sources. So this goes for APA, MLA, and Chicago style formatting. So just in case you haven't created a left hanging indent before, we're just gonna quickly run through how to do that. So the first thing you need to do is just highlight the source itself. So you can highlight all of your sources once you've put it all together in your bibliography. And then once whatever you're highlighting is going to be taking on the formatting and adjusting that we're doing. So you'll notice that there's a little blue triangle and a rectangle on top near that ruler at the very top of the page. That's what we're going to adjust to do this left hanging indent. So the first thing you want to do is bring that triangle over to number 1. Okay, so move that arrow to number 1 there. Now the arrow always moves with the rectangle, but the rectangle can move on its own. So we kind of have to do this in 2 steps. So move the rectangle and arrow to number 1 first. Then what you're going to do is just click the rectangle at the top and move that all the way back to 0. So your starting position. This is what creates that left hanging indent where you'll notice that there is the top line is hanging a little bit further to the left than the rest of your source, okay? And that's your left hanging indent. So first thing we'll be going through is MLA formatting. So MLA stands for Modern Language Association. So if you're formatting using an electronic source, so this is anytime you're using a website and things like that, anything that's online, this is the general way that you would do it. So this has a lot more information than you're probably going to have or need for your assignment. So we're going to go through it together. First, you have your author. And again, you go last name and then first name. Okay. Then you put the title in quotations. Now the title of the container and self-contained if a book. So if this is an online book, then you would put the book name in those brackets. The title of the container is just like the author website. So the title of the web page, and you want to make sure that it is italicized. So that's italicized there, just in case it didn't show up quite well. And then if there's other contributors, so multiple authors, you put them after that comma. And then any translators or editors, in case there's different editions, you would put in brackets. You also put another comma, and then the version, the edition in brackets, the number, the volume. Then you go through the publisher, publication date, location, pages or paragraphs that you have, And then you also include the URL or DOI or permalink there. Now, the second container's title, you most likely won't actually have that for your source. So don't worry about that too much. You only put it if you happen to have it. Now, you might not have all of the information from your source to do all of this. The point of this is that you fill out as much information as you can find on your source in this reference, okay? And again, don't forget to do that left hanging indent for it. So when you're formatting a book, it's a little simpler here. So when you're formatting a book, there's 3 different ways you do it, depending on how many authors you have. So if you just have one author, you would do the last name, comma, first name with a period. The title of the book is italicized. Then you give the city of publication, the publisher themselves, and then the publication date. So the publication date we'll use today as an example would be 26th of January, 2022. So use that day, month, and year format. If you have 2 authors, what you would do is same thing, but you would do the last name, comma, first name, and then the next author would be their first name and last name put together. The rest is the same. And then if you happen to have more than 2 authors, what you're going to do is last name, comma, first name, and then you're just going to write et al. And et al is sort of the catch-all for any time there's more than 2 authors. This is how it gets stated to recognize that there are multiple people working on this particular work. Now, when you're formatting an article or an online periodical, those are also a little bit different. So we're going to go through those together. So you would do your last name, comma, first name. The article title would be in quotation marks. Also notice all of the punctuation that I'm using in these slides is the punctuation that you should also have for your authors. So wherever there's a comma, period, quotation, all of that. So article title, and then the journal or newspaper title would be italicized. And then you would give a date that the article was published, again, using that day, month, and year formatting. A link to the article if you found it online, so the URL link, and also the date that you accessed the article itself. So the date you access the article is not necessarily the date that you're handing it in, right? You've most likely worked on this and researched it at least a week or 2 ahead of time, so that would be the date that you put. Now, if you're doing formatting for an online periodical or journal, you also need to include the volume number, the issue number, the year of publication, and then the page number there. And now moving on to APA formatting. So APA stands for the American Psychological Association. Okay, and we're going to go through those same 3 types of formatting. So formatting on a website, you would give the last name, comma, and first initial of the author. So with APA, you don't give the full first name. You mostly just use the first initials of the authors. You would give the date of publication in brackets, and then the title of the page would be in, so the title of the actual article page would be italicized. Then you would give the website name, and then after that, you give the URL, so that link to the website. One thing I do want to mention is when you're giving a URL link, you should be highlighting this and making it black font and get rid of the underline, because when you just copy and paste from the website, it's going to give that blue hyperlink formatting. So you just want to change that so that everything is smooth in your formatting. Now, when you're formatting a book, you would do the last name, comma, first initial, again, just using the initial for APA, the date of publication in brackets, the title of the book is italicized, and then you just give the publisher name. Now, if you have 2 authors, what you want to do is give the last name, comma, first initial, and then the first name and last name, the full first name and last name of the second author. And then again, that date of publication, the title of book is in italicized, and the publisher name. If you have more than 2 authors, then what you want to do is do the last name, comma, first initial, and then you write et al. And just period. And et al. Is the symbol to show us that there are multiple authors that worked on this particular work. So that's letting people know that there are more than 2 people that have worked on the reference that you've chosen to include for your essay. If you're formatting a journal article, so anything from like a periodical and that kind of thing, what you would do is the last name, comma, first initial, period, the date of the publication in brackets with a period, the title of the article, and then the title of the periodical and the volume number is what gets italicized. The issue number gets put in brackets. And then you put a comma and any pages that you used within that article. And then you give the DOI. Now, DOI, just in case you don't know what that means, it's a digital object identifier, and it generally looks similar to a URL link on websites. So that's what the DOI is. And moving on to Chicago style formatting. So when you are formatting on a website, you will give, so any kind of online source that you're doing, you would give the last name, comma, first name, period. The title of the web page would be put in quotations. Then you would give the name of the website, publishing organization, publication or revision date if available. And then you also give an access date if no other date is available to you. So an access date is the last time that you actually access this article. So even though your essay, let's say, is due today, you might have actually looked at this research last week in order to be doing that ahead of time to give yourself time for editing and so on. So your access date is not the date that your essay is actually due. So just be mindful of that. It can be different. And then you would put the URL at the end. So notice that when it comes to formatting a website for Chicago style, there is no italicization that is used. Then we move on to formatting a book. So this is done in 3 different ways based on the number of authors of your reference. So with just one author, you would do the last name, comma, first name. You would give the year it was published. You would give the name of the book and italicize that book name. Then you would give the city of the publisher, colon there, and then the name of the publisher. Now, if you had 2 authors, you would do the last name, comma, first name, and the first name and last name of the second author there, okay? If you were doing a book with more than 2 authors, then what you're gonna do is the last name, comma, first name, and then you're gonna put et al. And what et al stands for is basically that there are multiple people that are contributing to this particular work that you're referencing. So sometimes there are multiple people and there could be 3, 4, or even more authors on a publication. And so rather than write out all of those names, all you have to do is write et al, okay? And everything else stays the same. And then finally, we come to formatting a journal article. So for that, you would give the last name, comma, first name, period. The article title would go in quotation marks. The name of the journal or the periodical would be italicized. And you would also give the number, the volume number there. And then you would give the issue number after the comma, the year it was published in brackets. Then you give the colon there and you give a page number. You also give an access date and a URL. And again, that access date is just the last time that you actually looked at this particular reference to use in your work, okay? And the URL. Now for the URL, please make sure when you're doing that, you wanna highlight that URL and make sure you're changing it to black font and get rid of the underline that usually happens. So usually when we copy and paste something from a web browser, it highlights itself in blue and underlines it. This hyperlink will still work, but you want to make sure that you're changing it so that it looks like the rest of your work, so that it's not, so that's not in different colors and things like that for your proper formatting. Okay, and this is how you format your works cited and bibliography at the end of your essays.
Thank you for watching our video. We hope you found it helpful. Please like, share, and subscribe for more videos that teach you how to learn for life and get through school while taking care of yourself. Until next time, see you soon.